On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues, and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy.
Coming up this week.
But they had a werewolf flap in the 1970s. It was like front page news everywhere. It ripped somebody's garden fence down and chased people around and all sorts.
Hello everybody, my name's Hennis, and my friend Mr. Simon from Denmark thinks that I'm a Gnostic Archon. Well, you can't really argue with somebody from Denmark because they've got mermaids and they make my favourite biscuits. So, maybe I am, I don't know.
Well, Hennis, if the secret ruler of 365 levels is indeed an anthropomorphic chicken who is mainly motivated by biscuits, I think that would explain the modern world very well.
Mr. John, what's in this episode of On the Track?
Well, Hennis, in this week's episode we have the second part of my conversation with Paul Bestall, in which we carry on talking about what happened when Springheeled Jack came to Sheffield, and all sorts of other stuff as well. Enjoy.
I really like the old credits.
Ken, what's occurring on today's show? Oh, Barry, we've got a plasterer from Romford coming into the studio today, and what's special about him is that he likes to dress in the manner of the 3rd century child saint from Sicily, St. Vitus, and he does the dance as well.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. For those of you who are not aware, On the Track is a show that we put out every Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock for about half an hour, and it is augmented on Wednesday evenings at 6:30 by On the Track Extra, which is about half the length of that. And on the last Wednesday of every month, we bring you something imaginatively called the Last Wednesday of the Month show, in which me and the lovely Vivian Powell, together with our regular team of V. McCrinnan, Dave Scott and Ian Squibbs, discuss the latest Fortean zoological news with special guests and quite often make fun of it. It's great fun, and I would seriously suggest that you come along and watch because I think you'd enjoy it. But I've told you when they are and what the shows are, but what are they? Well, they're a mixture, a melange, a muddle of Lauren, what else begins with M?
Minx, of course.
Well, I think the big question here is, are we talking about the European minx, which is a very interesting small animal that conceivably would be quite a good addition to the British wildlife, or are we talking about the American minx, which is already an invasive species in Britain and which hopefully will sooner or later anyway, be eradicated? And we all know quite a lot about American minks, don't we, viewers? Well, we've told you what the show's about, but what we haven't told you is what's in it. Well, it's got hard science, weird shit, and surreality, What's a reality, boys and girls? Well, go and ask him. He probably knows better than I do.
Now you talk. No, don't press it again. Don't talk. Go say something.
Hello.
Heyo. Say, I'm going to eat your biscuit.
I'm gonna eat my biscuit.
You want to see Archie?
Were there any other cases at that time?
Well, it looks like from there being one, this lady particularly told me that her direct next door neighbours had both seen it. Everybody spoke about it. So that kind of took it up to about a dozen witnesses, all in this period of sort of late October, November.
And it'll happen again at some point.
Well, I'll be a little bit more sort of switched on and keeping attention now. So I'm always, as with anything these days, John, I'm always got sort of alerts from certain companies and news sites as well to alert me to anything strange. And you sign up for all the mailing list. So you've got to keep an eye out for these nuggets of fascinating strangeness hidden away among the mundaneness of life.
That's why my stepdaughters always say, why haven't you got so many emails in your email inbox? Because I subscribe to Google News alerts for all these different things.
Yes, same.
I've always thought the nearest thing that I've come across, or the nearest case that I've come across to the mad gas, to the Springheeled Jack, was the mad gasser of Mattoon in Illinois. And I went there about 20 plus years ago. And it was very strange going to all the different houses where it happened.
Yes. Yeah, it's a fascinating case.
Finding a town where people wouldn't talk about it even 80 years later.
There are some cases like that. That is a really weird one as well, because especially the official line was it was just mass panic and social hallucination, which I find a bit peculiar because it's a very specific thing. You have these occasionally where you have these really weird flaps, like hair cutting flaps, John. Or you have people, men cutting bits of women's clothing off them, which seems, whether these seem to be things that, once again, are far-flung Victorian pastimes, I'm not really sure. But the mad gasser, like you said, I think that was, what, 1946, 47, somewhere around there?
No, it was during the war.
Ah, a little bit earlier.
From memory, 40, 42, 41, 42. Oh, it's awful. I studied the damn thing. I've written about it and I can't remember the dates. I chose one to put the old man on.
But yes, they always kind of brush them off, I think, don't they, as sort of mass panic and social infection, which is a peculiar thing. I suppose people would look at that and say, oh, well, it was wartime paranoia. But Mattoon isn't a particularly sort of high profile location. So you could kind of understand that if it was happening in, say, San Francisco, up and down the seaboards, the western eastern coast, John, that they would have something like that. But that does seem a very specific panic to have.
Also, I think it would be more understandable if it was in a place that there were a lot of army garrisons around them, or the war industry, lots of armament factories and things all around, and so heightened paranoia and a heightened bloody hell we're at war feeling.
Yes.
But Mattoon is in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
As far as I can see, it doesn't have any claims to fame at all for anything apart from the mad gasser.
Well, it's strange, like you say. I mean, it's odd that it's one of those towns where the local people just don't want to talk about it, because there's a very similar case from the 1970s in the States, and I can't remember where it is, but they had a werewolf flap in the 1970s. It was like front page news everywhere. It ripped somebody's garden fence down and chased people around and all sorts. And within 2 years, people were like, I don't remember that. No, I'm not sure what you're talking about. And that's a very odd one, because it was like front page news for a week in this particular town. And then within a couple of years, nobody could remember anything about it.
or they all feel embarrassed that their town will go
Mhm.
down in history as Werewolfville, and so they're doing their best to negate it by brushing it under the carpet.
Yes.
Not because there's a great conspiracy, not because there's anything to hide, but just out of sheer social embarrassment.
Or that they've all become werewolves, John, and they're just trying to cover for
Of
each other.
course. So what you need to do is go there at a full moon with with some bunches of wolfsbane and recite that poem from Lon
Yes,
Chaney Jr. and see what
absolutely.
happens.
I think we've cracked it, John.
I think so. I think there's no point in being 14 investigators anymore. We've done it, mate. So what other peculiar, because the way I've seen it, every time you start studying the strangeness in any specific place, scratch the surface and it's all weird.
Mm.
I think the ideas that people like John Keel came up with, that there are certain areas that are window areas, well, I think if you scratch the surface, everywhere is a window area.
Mm.
You've just got to look.
Yes.
So what else is there in your area? I'm guaranteeing there will be something.
Well, it's Sheffield's a strange place because it kind of has history that it doesn't really like to focus a lot on until sort of the last 20 years. We've got some incredible historical locations that, I mean, I'd lived in Sheffield for 10 years until I realised that Mary Queen of Scots had been held prisoner here for several years in a Tudor castle that we had.
I knew that.
And I didn't even know it was still standing. And it's here in the manor in Sheffield, and that only came about because it was featured on a restoration program about 25 years ago on the BBC, and I didn't even know it was there. I lived less than a mile away from it. And now it's all been restored and you can visit it. There's lovely gardens there and cafes. We've got a castle that we've finally rediscovered after building over it for the best part of 400 years. Cromwell and his friends blew it up during the English Civil War, and we just covered it up. So it's only recently been uncovered for the first time in at least 80 years. And they're uncovering all kinds of things. I think they've just realised that there's actually evidence of a Norman settlement that they didn't realise was as big before. So that's just a brand new site that's only really sort of come to the fore in the last 5 years. So that's clearly going to give us a lot more information in regards to some of the history of here. And that, I would imagine, John, can only lead to opening up even more avenues for strange stories going back, because it's one of those things. Most people don't know that Sheffield has a castle. Well, we do, but it was underground. So it's I mean, and where we are, we're very lucky because we're smack next to the Peak District, which is just full of weird and wonderful things.
Oh, fantastic collection of things up there.
So you literally, you can drive for 15 minutes here in Sheffield, and then you're here in Big Cat Country and the Mermaid's Pool and stone circles and follies and haunted castles all over the shop round there.
And,
so,
and wallabies, and I'm pretty sure there's a werewolf or two up there as well.
Yes, absolutely. One of my favourites is the Mermaid's Pool, which is obviously where the mermaid who kills men lives, John. And she turns up at Easter and will ask people if they've been good, and regardless of the answers, she drags them under the pool's waves and has a little snack there. That's one of my favourites, and I've always made sure that I'm never anywhere near it at Easter.
My late wife was a feminist, and she was always disturbingly interested in the Mermaid's Pool story.
Well, I suppose she was one of the best early examples of feminism in action, John.
Well, yes, I suppose so. Then you could probably draw a direct line between the Mermaid's Pool and Valerie Solanas, who tried to assassinate Andy Warhol and her Society for Cutting Up Men. So,
Well, yes, absolutely. Certainly, the Venn diagram would cover both of those aspects, I believe.
I used to go to Sheffield a lot about 35 years ago, back when I worked for Steve Harley, God rest his soul. And whenever we were on tour, we had friends in Sheffield we'd always stay with. Because we could do a whole bunch of the local gigs and travel back to their house at night.
Yeah.
And so I know quite a lot of the area around there as well.
Yes, it's probably changed beyond recognition.
Oh, I'm sure it has.
It's completely changed from the city it was when I first moved here 33 years ago. It's like a different place, but I suppose that's time, especially here, like I say, Sheffield. We constantly building something somewhere, John,
or knocking something down.
yes, absolutely.
Hang on, I've just had one stupid bloody pop-up thing come and go away. Sorry, I had a pop-up telling us that we have 10 minutes left, which annoys me, but it costs far too much to be able to subscribe to Zoom, or else I'd do it properly, but then my shows would be 3 hours long, which is because conversations like this could just go on forever, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Many an avenue we could wander down, John. That's the joy of this particular subject, isn't it?
Well, I have a friend called Vivian who is far more into ghost hunting than I am. It's a subject that I've never really got involved with. But she has a whole battery of electronic equipment, and I bet you she will, once I tell her about the rediscovered castle and things, she'll be wanting to rush up the motorway from Peterborough, which is where she is, in order to sort of have big waves of electronic equipment to see what ghosts and EVPs she can pick up on.
Well, wouldn't surprise me. We've got a couple of ghost tours here in Sheffield as well, which are I have to say I went on one last year, and I learnt quite a bit, which is quite fascinating. I think that's one of the things that gets overlooked in regards to the paranormal, John. I think there are excellent ways to get people into history as well and learning a bit more about their local area.
I agree.
And some of the things we learned that particular, I knew some of the well-known ghost stories from Sheffield city centre, but I didn't know anything about our plague pits, which is now where a Tesco's is built. Rather ironically.
You've just made that up, Mr. Bestall.
No, not at all. It's smack in the city centre between the cathedral and the main high street in town. Built over the plague pit, which was just outside the cathedral grounds. So,
oh God,
and
that makes me laugh.
People have seen a hulking, shadowy, male-like figure sort of floating around there in the wee small hours over the years. So that
was probably one of the people coming to restock the Sheffield Tesco shelves.
Absolutely, yes. So and it's early in the morning, so you have to ask, is this person coming home from a night out or whatever? So you always have to take these things into consideration, as we mentioned about that lady and her big cat experience earlier. But I'd never known about there being plague pits in Sheffield, and then we had a chat about a mystery murder of a well-known bearded lady that happened at the end of the 19th century because she was apparently a massive celebrity in the area and people would come from miles around. We had a big drag bar in late 19th century Sheffield, which I didn't know anything about, and she was killed after a night out, and it was ruled accidental, even though she'd had the back of her head caved in, John, and was found face down. But they said, oh yeah, she must have fallen over. But her face wasn't hurt. It was the back of her head that had been caved in. And they never found anybody responsible for that. But I didn't know anything about this particular. And once again, people have claimed to have seen her wandering around, sometimes singing or sometimes checking on people if they're upset and asking, are you okay, love?
Youth think of things like drag bars as being a particularly 21st century thing. It's interesting to know that it was celebrated as far back as the late 19th century. That's amazing.
I think it's one of those things. I would be very surprised if Sheffield was an outlier in that, John. I wouldn't be surprised if there were establishments like that all over the north of England in major cities, because at the end of the day, you had a lot of working people looking for entertainment after a hard day's work and several pints in their bellies, and that wouldn't surprise me. There was all kinds of enjoyments available for people, so I would imagine it would probably, if as you say, once you start to scratch the surface, I would imagine there were probably situations like that in Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle, definitely in London, I would imagine, at that time as well.
And it was a damn sight more wholesome than bear baiting or cockfighting, which was the public entertainment of the generation or two before.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. I mean, there's still a couple of streets in Sheffield that are named after cockfighting arenas. So you could see how prevalent that sort of pastime was in those days. So yeah, it's certainly a lot better for everyone concerned. I think that people were enjoying singers rather than slaughter for their joy.
You'd be surprised how many ghost bears I've come across. And they are usually associated with somewhere where there was a bear pit. Which I find fascinating. I mean, it's horrible, but it's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I think animal ghosts are always probably one of my favourite aspects of the paranormal, because it's as you and I are both animal lovers, John. There are thousands and thousands of stories about people encountering former pets, or I know some people have obviously used that explanation in regards to black cats, but I don't think that stacks up in most of the witnesses. But like you say, ghost bears, probably the most famous one is the one at the Tower of London. But like you said, it's one of those things people don't really think about, because bears were kept as pets, and lots of people had private menageries. So I would not be surprised if there's more bear pits than people are aware of in every part of the UK.
It was dear old David Farrant, God rest his soul, who told me about my first one, which was in Salisbury, of all places. In the hill, just as you, on the hilly bit, just as you're driving down past Wilton into Salisbury. And again, that's part of the country I know reasonably well, and that totally blew me away. In the same way as you say that using ghost hunting and the Forteana of an area is a good way of teaching people history and their heritage, I find that cryptozoology and mystery animals and animal mysteries in general is a way of teaching natural history, because we as a society have got so divorced from the reality of the natural world. I think anything that we can do to bring people back into being interested in this stuff and being aware of this stuff has got to be a good thing.
Oh, very much so. It certainly leads you down there, because I can categorically say, if it wasn't for my love of Bigfoot and hairy hominids, I'd know next to nothing about the lineage of primates throughout time, in comparison to say dinosaurs or birds, John. And through Bigfoot, I've gone backwards and looked at the species of giant ape that roamed the earth. But then that, like you said, leads you into all kinds of things, and then you start to look at megafauna and all kinds, and you're just like, goodness me, this is incredible.
We have got 1 minute and 45 seconds left. On your podcast, the one that you do about monsters, who is the person who's still alive that you'd like to have on there and you haven't been able to get them? And
Lauren
that's
Coleman.
Not a hint to gather.
Well, Lauren Coleman, and we need to do another chat, but I'll explain why after the show. But yes, yourself and Lauren, I would love to spend some time with Lauren.
I truly wasn't trying to push myself along that, The one I want is the Chinese doctor who's been studying the Yeren. And
Yes.
I've been trying to get hold of him for years.
Yes. The last time I spoke to Dr. Jeff Meldrew, we talked about his work with that particular gentleman, and because we covered Yerens and Yetis, John. So he's obviously worked with him quite well. So he might be a good person to give you a lead in.
That's nice, because I've always got on with Jeff. So
yes, lovely man.
Well, we have less than a minute. Thank you. First of all, where can people get hold of the stuff that you do? How can you see it?
Certainly, you can find Mysteries and Monsters across all social media platforms. We're on all good podcast apps, and the episodes are always uploaded on YouTube as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been a joy to have you, and I think we've only scratched the surface of what we can talk about. So don't be surprised when I ask to do this again in, 6 months or something.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says, don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
If you've been affected by any of the topics in today's episode, you can just bugger off, because we don't give a monkeys. Bloody well get a grip. Sort your own bloody problems out rather than ringing up somewhere.
That was a public information film.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to say a very big thank you to everybody who contributed this time, and in particular to my guest, Paul Bestall. But I would also like to say thank you to Richard Muirhead, Richard Freeman, V. McCrillen, Graham Inglis, and to the lovely Guinevere Palmer, but for whom I wouldn't be able to do any of this shit. So thank you very much to all of you. I'm going to be back on Saturday. What am I talking about on Saturday? Well, unless I'm completely mistaken, I may be completely mistaken because I am a silly old sod. I am talking to Matt Page about his event, the first of which is happening in September, called Strange Days, which is going to mix a traditional hippie rock festival with a traditional Fortean conference, all in the environs of the legendary Bar Gin in Wiltshire. I'm going to be speaking there, Richard Freeman speaking there, Paul Bestall speaking there, and there's one of my favourite contemporary bands, a band called Henge, are going to be there. So I look forward to seeing you all next week when we're talking about this. And assuming you're there watching and I'm there doing all the gubbins I usually do on a Saturday afternoon, and yes, I'm talking to you, Mr. McCrillen, I most certainly am going to be seeing you.